Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am happy to have as my guest, Alan Crone, and let me tell you about his wonderful background. So Alan is the founder of the Crone Law Firm and a team leader. He is helping achieve a business dream of seeking compensation for others who have been treated unfairly, or he is really trying to bring out his expertise to really help you master winning strategies and innovative tactics. He is currently an author of The Law at Work, a Legal Playbook for Executives and Professionals that just came out this year in February. And he is the exciting host of Ask Alan, the podcast, and as well as a speaker. He has his employment law firm and is committed to helping employees, executives, and entrepreneurs to be able to resolve any workplace issues. Maybe that includes issues with employers and employees, or intellectual property disputes, or any other kind of commercial issues. His book reflects an approach when working with clients that says, I'd rather solve the problem than win your lawsuit, which I think is a great attitude to have. Nobody wants to go to court. Sorry, lawyers out there. He is a fifth generation Memphian, and he has been active in local and state politics for decades, serving as a former Memphis city councilman and as the senior policy advisor to the mayor of Memphis. And in 2023, the city of Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland appointed Alan to be the chairman of the City of Memphis Sports Authority Board. That's a cool thing to have.
It is cool.
And he is a voracious reader. You have to be to keep on top of all this legal stuff. You really do. And a proud father of 3 children he shares with his wife, Allison. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Alan Crone, as we talk about why you, as an entrepreneur, a small business owner, should have an employment lawyer on your side. Alan, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So we know where you come from, as I alluded to that in my opening, but have you always been in Memphis all your life, or is that are you a replant?
No, I've been here in this area all my life. My dad is a pharmacist, and he opened a pharmacy over in eastern Arkansas. And I always say I grew up on the bridge over the Mississippi River, because we were back and forth all the time. Yeah. And then I went to boarding school in Belleville, Illinois for 4 years.
Wow.
And then did a very small stint in Nashville, working for the governor back in 1994, was there for about a year. So other than that, I've been in Memphis all my life.
Tried and true. All right. So let's get into this. Why? Your dad's a pharmacist. What inspired you, motivated you to become an employment lawyer? I always am intrigued by what is that driving force that says, this is what I want to do.
Well, I should probably divide that into 2 spheres. The first sphere is lawyer. And I was a political science major. I was a theater major for a brief period of time. And so I've always been kind of drawn to the drama of the courtroom. and you know, with a political science degree, you're either going to get another advanced degree or you're going to go teach political science.
Yeah.
And so I've always enjoyed studying the law. And so I decided to go to law school, and primarily wanted to be a trial lawyer. And my first job out of law school, I was exposed to employment law, did a little bit, and then after a few years went to another firm where all I did was employment law. And I really enjoyed it. And I enjoy it because it's never dull. It's like having a permanent seat in the assistant principal of a high school's office, because all the problems come through there. But the stakes are so high.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you probably would have to look a long time before you found a field of the law where the stakes aren't high, because every legal dispute is it's significant. But in America, what we do is who we are, and so your employment relationship is important for you psychologically, self-esteem wise, but it's also critical for you to physically be able to eat and provide for your family. And so I just really have enjoyed the confluence of really interesting facts, really interesting law, and high stakes.
And I think sometimes whenever you're in business, you think you're all alone, and you don't seek maybe lawyers or legal advice. And, I would think that if you had that person on your side advising you before things got bad, you might avoid them ever getting bad, right? If you had that person in your ear.
That's exactly right. In fact, as a lawyer, we're in a highly regulated industry. The Supreme Court has a lot of rules and regulations on how you can conduct yourself. And, if I'm doing anything that's outside the norm in terms of what I normally do, I've got a lawyer on speed dial that is a expert on professional ethics and professional responsibility. And I'll call him up and say, hey, I give him a fact pattern. What am I doing? And I would much rather pay him, for an hour of his time on the phone with me than just do what I think is right or do what I think is prudent and find out that I've, unwittingly violated some rule. And that's very, very true in employment law. Most employment law is a creature of statute or regulation. And what that means is that it didn't grow organically. You can't really use your intuition to figure out what is the lawful thing to do. You've really got to know the law. You've got to know where to find the law and how the law relates to itself. And in this day and age, there's so many pitfalls, particularly if you have more than 25 employees. That's kind of, for me, that's where the cutoff is for my entrepreneur clients. That's when it gets so complicated. It's hard to keep, you got so many moving parts. And as an entrepreneur, you may not know everybody in your organization once it gets to 25. If you got 15, you probably know all those folks. You probably have a history with all those folks. You can probably resolve any dispute to their satisfaction. And therefore, nobody gets been out of shape about anything. Once you get to 25, then you kind of lose that touch with everybody. And you really need to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because many mistakes in employment law have a domino effect into other areas.
Yeah. And I know from state to state, the laws differ, in some ways. And so maybe just what you did in Texas is not going to be true in California.
That's correct. And you can kind of watch the presidential elections, and blue states are going to tend to have laws that are more favorable to the employee, and more laws And red states are going to tend to have less laws and be very narrowly drafted and narrowly construed. And so it's very dangerous to grow up in a red state in business and then expand into a blue state and without checking out that environment. And of course, that's an oversimplification, but I tell my entrepreneur friends all the time, I know it sounds self-serving for me to say you need to have a lawyer, but you need to have a lawyer, you need to have an accountant, you need to have a banker, you need to have an insurance agent to make sure that you're covering all the bases. And take them to lunch once a quarter, twice a year, just to catch up with them, let them know what you're doing, and make sure that, again, you're not unwittingly stepping into some landmine, without realizing it, because you've been so busy focusing on your business that you haven't really had a chance to look around at the environment and make sure where the risks are.
Right. So we talked a little bit about the start of your firm, but once you got established as an employment law firm, was there a case, or, and I know you don't have to go into detail, but was there something that's after you finished favorably with it, you thought, this is why I do this, it was such an impact for you?
It happens all the time in different formats. We do a lot of wage and hour litigation, overtime, and to be able to hand a working person $3,000 or $4,000 in wages that they were owed but weren't paid for. It may not be life-changing, but it certainly is impactful on them.
Yeah.
I've had any number of clients who were fired, they thought wrongfully, and we're able to negotiate an outcome for them. And just knowing that they were paid what they were entitled to. Most of my clients really aren't looking for a big windfall. They may be upset, and they would love to get a huge verdict against the company, but most of them just want what's right and enough to be able to bridge the gap between getting fired and finding their next job. So it's very rewarding. And that's the great part about it, is you really, as I said in the intro, not only are you really talking about physical safety, but people want to be able to they know that when a corporation writes them a check, that's as close as you're going to get to an apology.
Yeah.
And it is an indication that they made a mistake. Now, they may not agree that it was intentional discrimination or retaliation, but if they're writing a check, they're basically saying to you, we know that this didn't go as well as it could have gone, or should have gone.
Right. So you expanded your firm from Memphis, then to St. Louis, and now to Chicago. What was the incentive to do that? Is it just to grow or need?
Well, it's basically we want to help more people. And in as I said, Tennessee is a red state. Arkansas is a red state, and there aren't as many opportunities here as there are in Missouri and Illinois, where a lot more employees, a lot more employers, and the laws are more favorable in some instances. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is, as I said, we just want to help more people, and we feel like we do a really good job, and we want to make sure that our firm is available to more folks.
Yeah, I could see, especially Chicago, there's so many larger businesses and whatnot where, people can feel like just a number and not a person. And it's nice to know you have somebody in your court.
That's right. The companies all have human resource departments, and some have law departments. They all have lawyers on retainer. And so we want to help even the playing field for folks, and for entrepreneurs who want to do the right thing. We want to be there for them to help them not make a mistake. And, it's all about putting food on the table.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's why we all go to work. And the more you can eliminate the nonsense that gets in the way of the mission of the company and making money and allowing people to earn a livelihood, the better off we all are.
Yeah. So as a small business CEO or owner, whatever you want to call us, what are some things we can do to make sure that we hire employees that are a good match for the company and want to stay?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to have a mission that you can articulate, and you hire to that mission. And a good example, it's kind of a broad stroke example, but we're an employment litigation firm, which means we're trial lawyers. We go into court. Well, I'm not going to hire a lawyer, no matter how good they are, that doesn't have a passion for employment law and doesn't want to go into courtroom.
Yeah.
And we've had folks that either that have interviewed with us or we've hired who just have a fear of the courtroom or distaste for the courtroom. And that was a bad fit.
Yeah.
So having that on the front end and telling people, look, here are the reasons not to come work here. If you don't have a passion for this mission, then you don't need to be here. So that's the first thing, is have that mission and then hire to it and understand how your company fits together.
Right.
And I see so many companies that they don't understand in a very intentional way why they have the staffing they do, why they have the job responsibilities and assignments that they have, because they've kind of cobbled this thing together ad hoc as they went along, rather than having a vision for, this is the kind of company I want to have.
Right.
And so if you can do that and you craft your job descriptions to reflect what is actually going on in your organization, how that particular position affects your mission, then you take that along with that, whatever values that you have, and again, you hire to the mission, you hire to those values, and you hire to those job descriptions. And I think that job descriptions is an exercise that a lot of times operations people just kind of they just kind of check it off as, well, okay, I got job descriptions now, but they don't realize how important they are and that they're good business to really understand what's going on. And then you got to train people when you bring them in. You can't just say that, I'm guilty of this in the past. Okay, I need a lawyer. So you hire somebody that's got a great resume. They've been a great trial lawyer somewhere. Maybe they've been a great employment lawyer somewhere, but they've been trained in a way that it may be contrary to my values, contrary to my mission. I can't just assume, well, she's been practicing law for 20 years. I don't have to train them. No, you got to train them, make sure they know they're doing what you want. You eliminate all of that, and you're going to fire very, very few people, and you're going to lose very, very few people, because most people don't leave for the money. Most people leave because they're not satisfied with what they're doing. They don't feel like they're contributing. They don't feel like they're being successful. Maybe they have a boss they don't like. It very rarely is it because of the money. And if you've done all of those things and you're intentional about it, then by definition, you're going to have somebody that's suited to the job, someone that's passionate about what you're doing, and that's aligned with your values. It's going to be the rare person that checks all of those boxes, but then is not successful somehow. And it probably means that you as the business owner have failed to recognize some of those things that, in fact, when you check that box off for passion or competence or whatever, that you made a mistake in that. Because most people come into a company wanting to succeed. Nobody wants to come in and get fired. And so it's a complicated set of interconnecting webs that you have to get, like a golf swing. We get one thing off and all of a sudden it goes to heck in a handbasket. and go shooting off this way or whatever. So you kind of constantly work at it, and it's a hard thing to be disciplined about because most times when you're hiring, you need to get you've got a hole in your organization, or you're trying to grow, and not having that person is holding you back to some extent. And so a lot of times I think entrepreneurs are they get a little impatient, and maybe they jump the gun when take another week or two and find that unicorn that really makes a difference in your organization.
Yeah, that is so true. And I know in my experience over the years, that is how I was brought into most of my companies, and it made a difference. It makes you feel more secure in your job. And then as I became a manager, I remembered that. And there are a lot of companies that don't do those. We call them job breakdown analysis but job descriptions. But if I have a temp come in, I need to be able to hand them a sheet of paper so that there's no interruption in my efficiency or my job because of this new person. And I love that you mentioned about understanding the mission and the vision. That in your interview process, I think is paramount. You don't want to hire somebody. I can train them Excel or, any kind of software, but I can't change their behavior. They only have to see and recognize that. So ask questions that are going to bring that out and make a good hire. Great advice you share there. So you wrote this book. What was your driving force for writing the book, The Law at Work? What was your mission for that?
Well, my mission, my personal professional mission, is to transform the American workplace.
Nice.
And as I said before, I want to eliminate all the nonsense.
Yeah.
And one way you do that is to empower people with knowledge. And so I wanted to write a book that is not a definitive legal tome. If it were written for lawyers, it'd be, several volumes that big, because you have to put everything in. But I wanted to be very readable, and I wanted it to be kind of a resource that if you wanted to understand employment at will, or you wanted to understand intellectual property in the workplace, or you wanted to understand retaliation, that it would be a place to go and you could get a good foundation in what the principles were. There are lots of stories that illustrate the principles so that people can hopefully relate to it, and then be able to make some decisions based on that amount of knowledge. And then, also kind of give you an idea of, well, if I go see a lawyer about this, here's what she's going to want to know. And, forewarned is forearmed.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to write it. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and I've seen, I always say I haven't seen it all. Anytime I think I've seen it all, something happens and I think, man, it's unbelievable. But I've seen most of it, and I wanted to give people the benefit of that advice. And I can't talk to everybody, and this just expands my reach and scope of being able to transform the American workplace.
Yeah, this gives you that starting point, because I think, as we mentioned earlier, we don't know what questions to ask sometimes. And this is a great resource. So what should the employer, the person, the entrepreneur, small business owner, what steps should they take to protect their company with these best hiring practices? What are some steps they should take?
Well, I think most entrepreneurs are at risk for wage and hour claims, minimum wage and overtime. And if an entrepreneur said, look, I want to work on one thing at a time, what's the most important thing? I would tell them that you need to make sure that you're compensating your people correctly, because you make a mistake with one person, you hire the next person, it's a compounding problem.
Yeah, right.
And most of the time, the biggest mistake I see people making is they have people that they classify as independent contractors rather than employees. And the person is neither independent nor a contractor. And if you guess wrong on that, it can have tremendous financial repercussions. It can be 5-6 figures for just one person with a $3,000 claim. By the time you pay your lawyer, then you have to pay their lawyer, and you may have to pay some penalties. It's just not worth it. So that'd be the first thing, is make sure that your job descriptions are tight, that they reflect what you're actually doing. I tell people all the time that Exhibit A in just about every employment law file is the job description. That's the first thing I'm going to want to ask is, well, okay, do you have a copy of your job description? If I'm representing the entrepreneur, I'm going to say, okay, what was Betty's job description? Do you have that in writing? What policies govern Betty's employment? I want to see those things. And that's going to be the first thing that the other side is going to want to see if you get into a shooting war, as I say. Well, you want to make sure all of that is tight, is reflects reality, reflects the values and the mission of your company. And again, if you're writing all of that's why it's so important to have these values and this mission, because everything that you do and say in your dealings with employees needs to be rooted in that, so that if someone's ever second guessing you, whether it's a judge or whether it's a jury or some government official, and you show them this, one of our value pillars at the Crone Law Firm is reliability. And so if someone's late every day, that makes them unreliable. And if I'm putting it into that context, then my zeal to enforce that policy, my zeal to uphold that value, doesn't look like I'm trying to get rid of them. It looks like I'm trying to inculcate them into my company.
Right.
And if they refuse to do so, then when I fire them,
you have just cause.
They shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And no one who's Monday morning quarterbacking my decision should be surprised or suspicious in any way. It's when you have a standard that you've never communicated, that you've never explained, that you don't talk about when you're training or disciplining or whatever you want to call it, and it looks like you've plucked it out of the air. That's when you get into trouble, no matter what you've done. You can write them up, you can do all of these things, but if it doesn't look like you're being authentic and genuine about the standard, then I'm not saying you're going to lose a jury trial, but you open yourself up for more harm than if you had talked about it from the very, very beginning. Because after all, if it's enough that someone can get fired, why wouldn't you be talking about it from the very, very beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Just emphasizes how important good orientation is. And so many companies just eliminate training from their budget. And to me, it's just such a disservice to their employees. And, if you're running a business, your job isn't to train those people, it's to run the business. So bring in contractors or whomever to train your people, but your people need to be trained.
I was talking to a consultant the other day, and he said he had a client that was a plumbing company, and he said no plumber gets their own truck and their own route without going through 18 months of training.
Awesome.
He said, I don't care if they've been out 20 years, if they've been, being a plumber for 20 years, they're going to ride on a second chair on somebody else's truck, and they're going to understand how their company works. Now, that's a huge investment in training.
Yeah.
18 months is a long time before that person is fully producing for you. But he said, their reviews are out the roof. They've never had a better business bureau complaint. Their customers love them, and they have super low turnover.
Yeah.
In the long run, that sort of approach is going to be much more profitable than just throwing people out there. And you may throw 10 people out there and 2 of them are great and will stick, but now you got 8 people not just turning over, but they're going out and they're making your customers mad and they're doing bad work, and they're clogging up your opportunity costs because you're having to deal with all of these issues that if you just train them the right way, you'd been in a lot better shape.
Yeah, and they're also going out there and telling other people that your company is not as great as you would like them to think it is, and so that's bad for your business too. All right, it's time now for us to I think we only have time for one rapid fire. So you talk about how you and your company are involved in the community and making a difference. And I didn't want to end this because I'm all about, I believe volunteering is really a great way for companies to really meet their mission. And so I was wanting to just ask you, what are you doing, you and your company, to make a difference in the community?
Well, probably the biggest thing we do is we support a local nonprofit here in Memphis called Light Memphis, LITE Memphis, and they work with Opportunity Youth awesome. in high school to give them certain job skills, soft skills, but also work with them as entrepreneurs. Awesome. And it's great to work with those kids that they're high school aged, and one group, one young man started a sneaker company that's now grown into awesome. An actual company, and then people doing fashion design and yard work. I mean, just all kinds of different ways of making money, and so we'll go and they have pitch meetings where they pitch their business ideas, and we'll sit on panels to critique that. We will do some we do, I don't know if you call them seminars, but we'll teach classes on the kind of basic elementary legal business legal issues. Nice. And then we have a pro bono program where we represent folks in the community for without any charge, and that's and then our lawyers and staff do things on their own, but those are the 2 things we do for the formally through the firm.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I work with the youth too to teach them public speaking, and some of the groups I have one group that's 5th and 6th and 7th grades where they have an entrepreneur class, and I work on their pitches and things with them, and then I do some leadership and public speaking for the youth. I just think that that's the future, and we should teach them to be better communicators and leaders.
Yes.
So, very good. All right. Well, it's time now for me to share my screen. If you're listening and you have not been taking notes, I always tell you should have been, but if you're not, go grab that paper pencil so that you can get the website at least. If you are watching this, then you can do a screenshot of my contact information for Alan. So again, if you're listening, you can go to https:// Crone Law Firm PLC.com is one site. And he's also at Crone Law Firm PLC.com / the law at work with hyphens between that. Again, the-law-at-work. And we'll tell you why you want to listen to that. He's on Facebook at the Crone Law Firm, and LinkedIn is the-Crone-Law-Firm-PLC. And YouTube, just search for Alan Crone or Crone Law Firm. And he has that podcast, which is Ask-Alan. So you can find that on his website, just link to resources, and you'll find that Ask Alan podcast. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan to talk to you about his call to action, different things you can find on that website, and all about that book.
Well, really would encourage folks to take a look at the book. You can find it it's on Amazon, it's on Walmart.com, all of the places where you awesome. would buy a book. Same with the podcast. It's on all of the podcast outlets. Just search me. And And just Google me, Alan Crone, attorney, Memphis, and you'll find more than you want to know about me. I would just say, be proactive in your legal situation, whether it's really doesn't matter what kind of legal issue that you might have, but particularly if you're in a bad situation at work, don't just sit back, and you don't have to tolerate it. You've got options, you've got things you can do legally, you've got things you can do practically. And, we coach a lot of people just through practical situations because they don't have an HR department that works for them. The HR department's check comes from the company. And I've got a lot of HR friends and colleagues that I respect, but at the end of the day, their loyalty lies with the company. And more often than not, if you take them into your confidence, it's not going to end well for you. So reach out to me or another employment law attorney, pay a little bit of a fee, and hopefully we can solve your problems so that we don't have to try and win a lawsuit.
Awesome. You can find this information on my website, defindyourleadershipconfidence.com, or my YouTube site, Vicki Nettling. Well, it has been wonderful chatting with you. You're just such a wealth of information. And, I think a lot of us are scared of legal things. And it's so wonderful that you created this maybe easier to read format so that we can approach things with some intelligence so that we make correct and logical decisions, as opposed to just going with our gut, which might not always be the best thing in a legal situation.
That's true. That's true.
Awesome. Well, as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.